What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. We're doing another weekly recap. Let's start off with a load of NBA free agency news. Of course, the deals have slowed down now as the big wave of deals is over. But James Harden has officially signed his contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. He raced in a 2-year deal for $68.6 million to return to the Philadelphia 76ers. That's about $15 million or so less than the max. I think the max would be worth a little over $47 million. And on a per year basis, that's a little over $34 million. So I guess it's about $13 million less than he would have gotten on the max. Harden, for once being a little more selfish, and he decided to, not take all the money, took a little bit less to hopefully help, the Philadelphia 76ers add some pieces and hopefully compete for a championship. Sixers, they'll be in a position next year. Obviously, you have Harden for a full year now with Joel Embiid, who's one of the league's best players, along with the other guys you have, Matisse Thybulle and Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, who actually they got Harden and was turned into an all-star caliber player after the trade deadline. So, Sixers bring back Harden officially on a 2-year deal. Spurs gave Keldon Johnson a 4-year extension worth $80 million. He's a good young player that the Spurs have. Spurs to train Dejounte Murray. Clearly are going into a rebuild. I guess first of all, they got to pay somebody to get to the salary floor, and so they decided to pay Keldon Johnson. They got some young guys over there still. So, definitely going into a rebuild. Keldon Johnson looks like he will be part of it. He re-signs 4 years, $80 million. A little bit of a somewhat off topic, but on the NBA topic, I guess. Miles Bridges, small forward for the Charlotte Hornets, he pled not guilty to the domestic violence charges. He was accused of felony domestic violence, I believe. I think it was 3 counts of it. He had an argument with his wife or his girlfriend. I think it may have been his wife. I'm not sure if him and the woman are married or not, but his significant other, they got into an argument and it turned physical, and then the woman posted pictures of her after she went to the hospital. Her face was all messed up, and clearly Bridges got quite aggressive with her, and she put out some statements saying I can't stay quiet anymore, and my children have been traumatized. So who knows? This may have been going on for a while, but hopefully that situation can be resolved and all parties can get the help they need. It appears if this has been going on for a while, Miles Bridges may need some help, and hopefully the woman and health-wise will be okay going forward. Just wanted to mention that. Back on some real NBA news. Supposedly, the Brooklyn Nets want Scottie Barnes from the Toronto Raptors in a trade if they were to send Kevin Durant to the Raptors. Want to talk about this a little bit more. Last week I talked a little bit about how Kevin Durant might indeed stay with the Nets. Supposedly they would prefer to keep him if they can. That's what I'm hearing. Because of obviously when healthy, he's arguably the league's best player. And they have not liked any of the trade offers they have gotten. They have declined them. And I just think that they want so much for this guy. Kevin Durant's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, no question. He's a 12-time All-Star. He has 2 rings, a Finals MVP, a League MVP, a scoring title. He's done, I don't know if I'll say it all, because he's never won without, superstar help, but he's done a lot in the NBA. He has a Hall of Fame resume, no doubt. That being said, he's 34 years old. He's going to make $44 million this year. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He can't stay healthy, first of all. He cannot stay healthy. He's missed at least 40, 50 games a year for the last 3 years. In his first year at Brooklyn, he missed the entire year because of the torn Achilles he had in the postseason. The year prior with Golden State, and then coming off of that, he had injuries, missed a lot of time, and then last year missed a lot of time of injuries as well. So when he's on the court, you can make an argument he's the best player in the NBA when he's on the court. That being said, you're only getting them for possibly 30 or 40 games. That's what you've gotten out of them the last 3 years or so. And he's a bit of a head case. Like off the court, he's always tweeting and starting up controversy. So although you might be getting one healthy, maybe the best player in the NBA and an all-time great, not only are you going to have to give up a ton, you're going to have to give up, at least one all-star caliber player, possibly some other good young players who you would like to keep for your future, a ton of first-round draft picks. You're going to have to take on a lot of money. I mean, you could send contracts the other way to make the money work, but still, you're taking back more money than you're giving up. Durant's making $44 million. So you're giving up, possibly 3 or 4 players. You might be giving up 3, 4 plus first-round draft picks to get the guy. He's 34 years old, and he can't stay healthy, and he's already 34, and with the injury concerns. It's one thing if the guy's 25 has injury concerns. You have time to move past that, and there's no worries he's going to break down eventually. Although Kevin Durant's a different animal. He's one of the all-time greats. He is 34 years old. 34 is 34. And like I said, the guy's always sending out these controversial tweets. He's controversial on social media. He's, oversensitive, and he wants to have, he wants to have like power to make decisions. He wants to have, the power of a general manager, who's only a player. And it creates problems with the front office, and he clashes with the team, and it's definitely not all roses with Kevin Durant. So he's got a lot of baggage that comes along with him. So I just don't know if that's just saying we want a superstar caliber player. So like if he goes to Toronto, they want Scotty Barnes, who might be a future superstar. If he's going to, let's say, the Miami Heat, they're gonna want a guy like Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler possibly. If you're going to the Phoenix Suns, they may want a guy like Devin Booker back. Another problem is a lot of these guys are signing like their rookie scale max extensions, so they're not eligible to be traded. So like obviously if he would be traded to the Suns, I'm sure the Nets would want Devin Booker, but he just signed the 4-year extension worth over $200 million. He's not eligible to be traded till like a certain point. So if you're not putting him in the deal, I don't think Chris Paul really helps you. I mean, yes, he could help. He helps every team in the regular season, but also he's in his late 30s. And if you're going into a bit of a rebuild, bringing in a guy like Chris Paul who makes almost as much as Durant does and is even older than Durant, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. You can take back DeAndre Ayton, who I do think is a very good player. Of course, signed his max deal a couple weeks ago. The 4-year deal worth over $130 million on the 4-year max as a restricted free agent. Suns decided to match the offer sheet that the Indiana Pacers has signed Ayton to. So Ayton will be a Sun. He can't be traded till at least like January, so he'll be a Sun heading into the season. Unless something otherworldly happens, but otherwise it looks like DeAndre Ayton will be back with the Phoenix Suns next year after some debate that he may possibly leave in the offseason. He will not be leaving. You can do him. Maybe you give him Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson and some picks, but I don't see a superstar in that deal. I'm not even sure if I see a future superstar. I think Ayton could be a very good player, a 20 and 10 guy, a really good starting center. He's not a superstar. I think Cameron Johnson can be a very good player. He can definitely, he can shoot, but I don't know about a superstar. I do really like Mikal Bridges. I think he'll make a couple All-Star games for sure. He can be a fantastic 3-and-D guy. He's one of the league's best perimeter defenders. He can shoot the basketball. I think he's only going to get better. But can he be a superstar? I'm not quite sure he can reach that level. I think he's a very, very talented individual, like I said. I think he'll definitely be an all-star, a perennial all-star, but a superstar, I don't know. So I'm not sure if that trade will work. So I don't know where he's going to go. So I think the best shot might be the Toronto Raptors because they have Scotty Barnes, who looks like he's going to be a superstar. I think it's a fair assumption. You have Pascal Siakam, who's seems like a perennial all-star right now. Fred VanVleet's another really good player that they have. OG and always a really good player. Gary Trent's a really good player. Of course, they have draft picks, so Toronto can definitely do a deal because they have a lot of really good young players, including a guy who's arguably a future superstar in Scotty Barnes. They have some other really good players, who are still young and who are already really good, only going to get better, such as Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam and Gary Trent and OG Anunoby. They can give you draft picks. I'm team with the Miami Heat. First of all, Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Kyle Lowry all to be on the team. I don't know who else Miami is giving up. All right, you can get back Tyler Hero. You can give him Duncan Robinson. He's a good guy who can chew off the ball. Other than that, I don't know what players are really enticing. They have a lot of good role players, like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, but, those guys aren't going to single-handedly, be a reason then that's turn their franchise around and win a championship after you trade away Kevin Durant. Like the Phoenix Suns, since they can't trade Devin Booker, a package of DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cameron Johnson, and let's say 4 first-rounder, I think is a very good package. I think that's 3 very good young players, and you get back a lot of draft picks. But you remember, you're giving up maybe the league's best player. You're giving up a top 3 player in the NBA when he's healthy. It's getting back, Ayton, who obviously a very good, not great player. You get back Cameron Johnson, who, hasn't, he's coming off the bench in Phoenix, hasn't shown all of his abilities yet, but he's a guy who could be a good shooter. Maybe a second or third option, but definitely not a superstar. Mikal Bridges, who could be a great 3-and-D option, but I don't know if it can be a superstar. You're basically getting, you could argue, 3 good, not great players back for Kevin Durant, who's an all-time great player. So I just don't know, unless that's, kind of lower their asking price. Okay, we just want to get back, a couple of really good young players. One of them preferably is on a decent contract, to make the money work, and then a bunch of draft picks. Let's say 3 or 4 first round picks, which is still a lot, but also your team is this team is getting Kevin Durant. So I think until they say they come down from what's kind of a ridiculous asking price, you want a superstar caliber player, and then you want 4 or 5 first round picks. You see some of these offers. Supposedly, they asked for LeBron James and Anthony Davis, plus Kendrick Nunn's a young player, and 5 first-round picks. For LeBron, who's one of the all-time greats, a lot of people consider him a top 5, top 3 player of all time. Still a top 5 player in the game, arguably. Anthony Davis, who of course has injury concern, when healthy, is one of the league's best players. I've said my opinion on him, but he may be on a bit of a decline now, but that's not a story from for another day. Kendrick Nunn, who showed a lot of potential in Miami, didn't play too much last year with the Lakers. And 5 first round, that's ridiculous. And then Minnesota Timberwolves, they asked for Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, 2 young superstars, and 4 or 5 first round picks. If you're Minnesota, you got this really good young core. Why would you mess that up just to get Kevin Durant? And outside of Kevin Durant, you still have a couple of young players, such as D'Angelo Russell. But I don't think that team's gonna win a championship. So if I'm Minnesota, I would rather just keep building and keep adding piece by piece. Their asking price is just so steep. I just don't think anyone's willing to pay it. So that's my spiel on Kevin Durant and what's going on there. And then draft free agency is continuing. We had a few more impact signings happen over the last week. The Columbus Blue Jackets re-signed Patrick Laine to a 4-year deal worth $34.8 million. He's a really good young player, one of the best young goal scorers in the NHL. Pittsburgh Penguins, they re-signed Kasperi Kapanen in a 2-year, $6.4 million. Nino Niederreiter from the Carolina Hurricanes from the 2-year deal of $8 million with Nashville Predators. It's a good signing. He had over 20 goals last year. He's a good player. Devils, who made the trade to get a young goalie, Vitek Vanecek from Washington, re-signed him to a 3-year deal, $10.2 million. So they came to terms with him. So they got his rights from Washington. Washington went in a different direction. at the goaltender position, trading Vancheck to New Jersey and letting Samsonov go. Of course, Samsonov signed with Toronto after that duo weren't that good last year, and then of course they made the big move to sign Darcy Kemper to a 5-year contract. So definitely a good move for Washington. New Jersey trying to improve their goalie situation, which was very, very poor last year. Mackenzie Blackwood had some injuries. He struggled last year when he was healthy. So they're, I'm sure, hoping for a bounce back from him, a guy who a couple years ago I thought was emerging as one of the best young goalies in the league. And now you bring in Vancheck. He a couple years ago, as a rookie, was very good, but since then has been very inconsistent. So he resigns. Sharks sign goalie Capo Kakinen, 2 years, $5.5 million. He's another young goalie. In his rookie year a couple years ago in Minnesota looked pretty good, but since then has struggled. He signs with Minnesota, and then Luke Kunin, the 2-year, $5.5 million deal as well with the San Jose Sharks. We have some actual head coaching news. Speaking of the San Jose Sharks, they hired David Quinn to a 3-year deal. David Quinn, he originally was the head coach at Boston University, one of the top college hockey programs. Then he was head coach of the New York Rangers, of course my favorite NHL team, for 3 seasons. Was fired after last year, not this year, but the year prior, after not making the playoffs for 3 seasons with the Rangers. He was let go. He's also coached the American team for the Olympics. He's been their head coach. So he gets hired by the Sharks. I think it's a pretty good hire. I liked him with the Rangers. When he took over the Rangers were a really young team that really wasn't quite ready to win. And he's a guy who he preaches toughness. He wants you to for 60 minutes a night to try your hardest. I would have liked to see the Rangers get in the playoffs. His last year there didn't quite happen, but like that year, the first half of the year they kind of really weren't playing well. I was kind of concerned, but the second half of the year they actually played very well and got really close to the playoff. But they kind of had some injuries the last couple of weeks and ended up costing them. And in the pandemic season, they were playing. They were on fire. And they got within a couple points of the playoffs, but it looked like they were going to be in the playoffs, like 2 or 3 years ahead of schedule. And then the pandemic happened, and they ended up getting stuck in the bubble, and they lost to Carolina in like the whatever you call it, the qualifying round, what we want to call it. So I thought he actually did a pretty good job there. Of course, the Rangers started to make a change. After the whole thing with Panarin happened, when Tom Wilson somehow didn't get suspended for beating up Kenny Panarin, and then Rangers front office, GM at the time, Jeff Gordon, team president at the time, John Davidson, released that statement, calling out the NHL. And then, I'm not sure what they could do with that or not, but then they ended up getting fired. Their owner, Jim Dolan, of course, the owner of the Knicks, he's been criticized for doing a bad job with the Knicks, but somehow he found a way to do a good job with the Rangers, meaning he stays out of the Rangers. The Knicks, he's always very hands-on, of course. That would work for Jim Dolan. And then, they got fired for about a couple weeks left in the season. It was very shocking. And then a couple weeks later, they fired David Quinn. Dolan probably figured, I guess he was not happy with the results. I guess he wanted to make the playoffs, and they didn't. He already made his opinion known about what job he thought the front office did. And then he thought the coach, it made sense. I did see it coming once they fired Gordon and Davidson. You're not going to bring in. He promoted Chris Drury, but at the time we didn't know he was going to do that. If they were at the time, we thought they might look outside of the organization for a GM. And if you're bringing in someone, they probably wouldn't want Quinn to come back. They'd probably want to bring in their own coach, especially since Quinn, although it really wasn't his fault. And they did not make the playoffs in 3 years there and had a lot of good young players. And of course, you had your guys like Artemi Panarin and some veterans there as well, who were very established and very successful players. So we decided it was the right move, and it's all worked out because he brought in Gerard Gallant to be the head coach, and Gallant did a great job as the head coach of the year finalist and took the Rangers to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And of course, Chris Drury, his move he made last offseason worked out. Anyway, back to the NHL for agency front. Nothing else too interesting happened that I have not already shared with you guys. I didn't share last week, but one signing that happened on July 15th, I want to go over. Kaya Yarncroc, from a 4-year deal of $8.4 million with Toronto, is a pretty good player. Originally started with Nashville. He was drafted by Seattle in the expansion draft last year, was traded to the Flames, but trade deadline, he signed a 4-year deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a pretty good player. A couple of big trades happened. Matthew Tkachuk, of course, one of the young stars of this league, had over 40 goals last year and over 100 points. Second to on his team to, of course, Johnny Gaudreau, who left for the Blue Jackets last year, had 40 goals and 115 points. He told the Flames he did not want to sign a long-term deal with them, so the Flames were kind of forced to trade him, and they made a big trade of him. They traded him to the Florida Panthers, but they got a huge haul back from them. They get back Jonathan Huberdeau, who's one of the best players in the NHL. They get back Mackenzie Weegar, who's a really good young defenseman. They get back another prospect and a first-round draft pick in 2025. So a big trade there, a huge return for Florida. I want to say it's a win-win trade. I do think it was because Florida gets one of the best young players in the NHL, who's a 40-goal-a-year threat in Matthew Tkachuk. But what a return Calgary gets on him. They get back Jonathan Huberdeau, who's a 35, 40-point, 90, 100-point a-year guy. They get back a really good defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar. They get back a good prospect, and they get back a future first-round draft pick. So kudos to Calgary Flames for realizing, okay, they lose Gaudreau. He took less money to go to what's a less desirable team, and Columbus Blue Jackets, nothing to do about that. At that point, they're like, all right, we'll re-sign Tkachuk. Then Tkachuk says, I want to be here. Then they're like, oh my God, we're screwed. They made sure to trade him quickly, and they got a huge return from him to get back Jonathan Huberdeau, who was an amazing player. Mackenzie Weegar, a really good young defenseman, very underrated player, very good hockey player. You get back a very good prospect in Cole Schwint, and then you get back a line protected first in 2025. Tkachuk gets his money, signs an 8-year deal with Florida worth $9.5 million a year, so everyone got what they wanted. Tkachuk gets out of Calgary. He goes to Florida, who was the best team in the NHL last year, most points in the regular season last year. He gets his contract, and Calgary gets a huge return from getting back Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, a good prospect in Cole Schwint, and a first-round draft pick. Another trade, Oliver Bjorkstrand was traded to the Seattle Kraken for a bunch of draft picks. Interesting move there. The Columbus Blue Jackets traded Oliver Bjorkstrand to the Kraken for 2 draft picks. That's a really good pickup for the Kraken, of course, a new expansion team with a lot of young players. Of course, they've been spending some money. They signed Andre Burakovsky, who had a really good year last year with Colorado, first one the Stanley Cup. Now you trade for Bjorkstrand, who's still just 27 years old, and last year had 28 goals and 57 points. Columbus, I just think, was in a bit of a cap crunch because, of course, they signed Johnny Gaudreau to a huge contract. They re-signed Patrick Laine, who got almost $35 million. And they are still paying Alexander Wemberg, who they bought out last year, so along with all their other guys. So they just did not have money for all these guys. They need to move somebody. So they got back on the salary cap, so unfortunately it had to be Oliver Bjorkstrand, who was a really good young player, 28 goals, almost 60 points last year, but they get back a couple of draft picks. They got back a 3rd rounder and a 4th rounder in next year's draft. So we'll see if Seattle take a step forward. They got some good young players. They got some veterans mixed in. They bring in Burakovsky, and now they bring in Oliver Bjorkstrand. They draft Shane Wright, who we thought would go number 1 with the 4th pick. And we'll see if he'll be there day 1. So Seattle Kraken have had a very good offseason. It's a big move for them to get Bjorkstrand onto MLB. Last weekend we had the All-Star break just ended. At the All-Star game, the American League beat the National League 3-2. Giancarlo Stanton was also given MVP. He had a game-tying 2-run home run. I think in the 5th inning. The AL has won like 9 straight All-Star games over the National League. They've just been dominating lately. And Juan Soto won the Home Run Derby. Congratulations to him. Unfortunately, one of my favorite players, as a Mets fan, Pete Alonso, did not win. He won the last 2 years, did not quite win this year. He lost from the second round to Julio Rodriguez, who put on quite a show. 81 total home runs. It's funny, the two best Derby performances ever. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a few years ago in 2019, he had 91 home runs, and this year Julio Rodriguez had 81 home runs. Both of them finished second. Both of them didn't even win, which I find funny. Speaking of Juan Soto, about a week or two ago, Juan Soto turned down a 15-year contract extension worth $440 million from the Washington Nationals. This is like the third time since his offseason that he's turned down a huge deal. I believe he turned down a 13-year deal for $350 million in the offseason. I think they offered him around $420 million about a week or two before this offer. He said no. So all right, he'll definitely accept this one. 15 years, $440 million, and he said no. I think at this point the Nationals are just saying he's got 2 years left of arbitration. He's making a lot of money in arbitration already. He knows if he goes on the out market, he might be able to get $500 million. I think he's eyeing. I mean, he turned down $440 million. How much higher is the team really going to go running an extension? Any team, that is, not just the Nationals. You know, the Nationals are having a really bad year. They're in a rebuild. They're probably, let's say, 3 years away from winning. They're a couple years away, probably. You know, by the time Soto reaches free agency, it may not be worth paying him, especially considering he might become, the highest paid player in the league when he hits the market. So they decide, all right, they're not I don't think they're actively shopping him, but they are listening to trade offers on him. I'm hearing it's going to take a massive haul. So they want 4 to 5, a combination of 4 to 5, really young cross control players as well as top prospects. I know my favorite team in the New York Mets, there was rumors he might go there. I'm hearing it's probably not going to happen just because they're in the same division. Nationals don't want to help the Mets out. The Yankees, at first we were hearing that they had backed out. Now they're saying they are a candidate. I'm hearing the Padres could be a team that could go after them. The Dodgers have popped up just because they're the Dodgers. So it's a bit of a mystery right now, but it is possible he could get traded, even at the trade deadline, and I definitely think it's very possible this offseason, if not the trade deadline, he could be dealt. I just want to call him out a bit. Him being upset that the Nationals didn't book him on their first class plane. He had a fly home commercial at 1:30 in the morning. Dude, come on. Everyone flies commercials. Stop being so entitled, you stupid rich professional athlete. I understand you gotta wait a few hours for it, but these people who travel for a living, sometimes plans get delayed. You have to wait 5-6 hours. Get some earbuds, plug your earbuds in, watch some Netflix. There's plenty of shows on Netflix. No, Netflix kind of sucks now. They're being carried by Stranger Things and the Umbrella Academy, but who knows? Binge Stranger Things, binge Umbrella Academy. Hell, Squid Games is a show that was some months ago. Binge something on Netflix while you wait. Come on, dude. I thought that was so ridiculous. Anyway, moving on to, first, before we talk about the trade deadline, which is on August 2nd, let's go over the MLB standings, as we are just about a couple of days out of the All-Star break, and we just returned. This is what we have. American League Central, the Minnesota Twins are in first place at 51-44. They're 2 games ahead of Cleveland and 4 games ahead of the White Sox, and the Tigers and Royals round out that division. Yankees continuing to dominate. They are the best team in baseball, 12 games ahead of Tampa. And then followed by Toronto, Boston, and then the Orioles, who aren't even that bad this year. They're shockingly, the Orioles are 500. They're only a half game out of 4th place in that division. That division is nasty. American League West, Astros continue to win. They're 63-32. Astros are actually only like a game and a half behind the Yankees for the best record in baseball. They're having an incredible year. They're now 12 games ahead of Seattle, who they beat twice in a row to snap their 14-game win streak. But Seattle is playing well still. And then in the West, behind Seattle, is the Texas Rangers, the Angels, and the Oakland Athletics. Going to the National League Central, Milwaukee Brewers, 52-43. They are a game and a half ahead of the Cardinals, and the rest of the division is terrible with the Pirates, Cubs, and Reds rounding it out. NL East has gotten really tight. My Mets are still playing well, though they've lost the first 2 to San Diego. Still 58-37, still doing great. But the Atlanta Braves continue to win. They're just a half game behind the Mets. The Mets at one point had a 10.5 game lead. Atlanta's crawled all the way back. They have been maybe the best team in baseball over the last almost 2 months at this point. And they're only a half game back. And then following those 2 teams are the Phillies, Marlins, and the Nationals. And National League West, you have the Los Angeles Dodgers running over there, 10.5 games ahead of the Padres. They have the best record of the National League. And then the Giants, Rockies, and Diamondbacks run out of that division. That's what we got for the standings. I want to talk about the MLB trade deadline. The trade deadline is on August 2nd, so a week from tomorrow. 8 days until the trade deadline. Obviously, the top piece is Juan Soto. I think that's pretty clear cut. Will he get traded? That's a big question mark. So we'll see what happens with Soto. It's going to take a lot to get him. Other top guys that are on the market on the offensive side of things, the Cubs have a couple of pieces. Their catcher, Wilson Contreras, is one of the top bats on the market. He's 30 years old. He's one of the best catchers in baseball. He started the All-Star game for the National League. He's a really good hitter. He's a really good middle of the order threat. He's handled the Cubs pitching staff very well. He's a really good two-way catcher. He's definitely more offensive minded. He can defend, but he's better offensively. So we'll see. You got to make the New York Mets. We have a hole at catcher. James McCann's hurt. He's only hitting 170 right now. Your starter is Tomas Nido, who's only hitting about 210 this year with no home runs. They just trade for Michael Perez, who's only hitting 160 from the Pirates for depth. So the Mets staff could use a catcher. Of course, you got Francisco Alvarez on the cusp, your top prospect, and you just drafted Kevin Parada, who's another catcher in the first round this year. So could the Mets make a move? Houston's got Martin Maldonado, who's a great defender, kind of like the Mets have with James McCann and Tomas Nido, but he's only hitting about 160. He's been awful at the dish. So we'll see. Could one of those teams make a big move for Wilson Contreras? He's going to be a free agent. Well, I doubt the Cubs will want to keep him. Ian Happ is a guy who's having a career year. He's a guy who a couple of years ago was a strikeout machine. He's not striking out as much. He's got 47 on base this year, having a very good season. He's an outfielder, can also play in the infield. He's got another year left on his contract. But the Cubs are terrible going into a giant rebuild. Of course, they blew it up at the deadline last year. And Contreras looks like he's going to be following Evan Amador, and those are 2 of the very few guys left on the roster who were on that 2016 World Series team that broke the 108-year World Series drought. He's a guy who could be on the move. Josh Bell is another big bat, first baseman for the Nationals. He's been a little inconsistent over the years, but he's having a very, very good year. He's hitting 3 away with 11 home runs. He's throwing a lot of walks. He had 37 home runs, 114 RBIs in 2019 for the Pirates, so we know he has the ability to be one of the most feared power bats in the league. I think part of the reason his home run totals are down a little bit is because that Nationals lineup outside of Juan Soto, really doesn't have a lot of help in that lineup. So that's why his home run numbers now, but still, he's hitting 308 and he's drawing a lot of walks, which is very impressive for a guy who's as big as he is. He's a free agent to be. He could be on the move. Yeah, Andrew Benintendi's another popular guy that we've seen. He's going to be a free agent after the season. And the Royals are terrible. There's no reason to really to pay him. He's been hitting around 300 all year. He's a very good outfielder. He's played mainly left field, but he can play all three spots. I've heard the Yankees are looking at him. There was a rumor that the Yankees did not want him because Andrew Benintendi is unvaccinated, and so he cannot play in Toronto. Of course, the Yankees play in the same division as Toronto, so I'm sure they have a bunch of games in Toronto to go. Of course, when the Royals played in Toronto, they had a bunch of guys who couldn't play because they were unvaccinated. Benintendi was one of them. So that was kind of turning the Yankees off. They're like, all right, he might be a really good player for us, could help us, but you never know. If they end up playing Toronto in the first round of the playoffs and they won't have him for half the series, that's obviously a negative. So, but now they appear to be ramping up their efforts to try to trade for him. And I think he's a perfect fit. The Yankees need another outfielder outside of Aaron Judge. They really haven't gotten any production. I mean, they have Stanton, but Stanton also does a lot of DHing as well. I mean, Joey Gallo has been horrible, hanging 160 this year. Aaron Hicks has not been very good. Matt Carpenter, who forces on fire, he's got 13 home runs in like 35 games, hitting like 340, like a 1200 OPS. Looks like a video game. He can play out there, but he's not really an outfielder, and there's just no one else. They could use another outfielder, and they really need a left-handed bat because that lefties have a big advantage in Yankee Stadium because of that short fence in right field, and they don't have a lot of lefties outside of Anthony Rizzo. Only a lefty really making waves is Matt Carpenter, who's of course has only played 35 games, so they only recently signed him, and Joey Gallo, who's at this point is useless. So Benintendi is a left-handed outfielder. Yankees are a team that can get a little too homer happy sometimes, and he's more of a contact hitter than a power hitter. He's not a big power guy. He'll hit 300. He'll get on base a lot. Won't strike out that much. He can drive and run. He's a left-handed bat. He can play center field. Yankees don't really have a true center fielder. The only true center fielder we have is Aaron Hicks, and he's only hitting about 230. And of course he's always had trouble staying on the field. I think he's a perfect fit for the Yankees. We'll see if they end up pulling the trigger. On the pitching side of things, there's not a ton of relievers available, but for starting pitchers, there's a couple of really good ones. Frankie Montas is having a really good season for the Oakland Athletics. He's one of the top starting pitchers on the market. He's one of the very few guys that Oakland did not trade this offseason. I think he's got another year of arbitration, so they decided to not trade him during the offseason, but I think it might be in their best interest to trade him. They're clearly going into a giant rebuild. That's gonna take a while. There's a bunch of teams that could use some starting pitching, as always. He's having a very good year. He very good year. He can go deep into ball games. He's I think a really good second or third starter in pretty much any rotation. So he's a guy. Then you have Luis Castillo, who hasn't had quite his best season. His strikeout numbers have been down. He did have some injury problems in April, so I'm not sure if that's been part of it. But he's still had a good year. He's very consistent. He's always consistently very good. He's a really good second or third starter. The Reds, of course, also pretty much signaled a big rebuild this offseason. See if they continue that. He's got another year left on his contract and arbitration. Might be best to trade him. Merrill Kelly's a guy who's got a sub-4 ERA. He's having a good year for Arizona. Free agent to be. Could be on the move. There's Tyler Mahle also in Cincinnati. He's a really good young pitcher. Also is only signed through next year. The Reds won't compete next year. Could he get moved? And then there's one who's really interesting. Martin Perez, who's had a career with the Texas Rangers. He's a kind of a crazy story. Texas drafted him very high. I think like a third pick or something like that in the draft years ago. Didn't pan out. He bounced around a couple different teams. He was on Boston last year, I think. He went back to Texas this offseason, signed a 1 year deal with $4 million, a team option for $6 million for next year, just for some depth in their rotation. He's now 31 years old, but he's had come out and had a huge year. He's got a sub-3 ERA, all-star caliber season. Texas is not having a very good year. Right now, they are in third place in the American League West. They are 42-51. They're struggling. They are 8 games out of the playoffs, so probably not going anywhere. Maybe they're about to just be sellers at the trade deadline. That being said, Mark Perez is also has a $6 million team option, so they can just basically hand him $6 million and say you have and you're playing for us next year if they want to. That being said, does Texas think they can be a playoff team next year and compete next year? If they don't, then it's probably best to trade Perez while the stove is hot. Also, let's say they're kind of not sure, but they think, all right, the team we have now, no, but they think they can make some moves in the offseason and they can get there. So if they think it's a maybe. Also, Mark Perez, his entire career has been the guy who's, his ERA's hovered around, 4.5, even close to 5. He's been, an average 5th starter. This year is, by far the best year of his career. Can he do it again next year? Next year, will he go out and have a 4.30 ERA and go back to what he's done for basically the rest of his career? And even if at that point he'll be afraid at the end of the year, he won't be having a great year. And now that we're thinking, damn, we could have gotten so much more for him. So that's one. They're kind of in the middle there. He's a guy who could boost anyone's rotation. He's one of the best pitchers in the baseball this year. So it'll be interesting if Texas is willing to move him. Not a ton of relievers on that. We got Jorge Lopez, who, although he has 3 years left of arbitration, when the Orioles were sucking earlier in the year, like they always were, we thought he could be a big guy they could move to get a lot back for and kind of accelerate their rebuild. But they've gotten hot lately, and they're back. They're also near a 500 team. They're only 3.5 games out of the playoffs, so he probably won't go anywhere. That being said, David Robinson's a reliever that probably will get traded. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Finally staying healthy this year. Has an ERA just over 2. He's done a good job as the closer for the Cubs. Left-hander could be a guy who goes somewhere else. That's free for the trade deadline. The deadline is not as many big names as there were last year, because Max Scherzer, Trey Turner were 2 biggest names traded. There were some others as well. But trade deadline is a week from tomorrow. All right, we got some sad news. So we got a little bit of sad news today. We had the Miles Bridges thing, and now we got some more sad news. Houston Texans second-round rookie wide receiver John Mechie was just diagnosed with leukemia. He's going to be undergoing treatment. Probably will miss the entire season. The doctors are optimistic about his recovery, which is good. It's good. People have beaten leukemia before. I believe Trey Mancini, the designated hitter for the Baltimore Orioles 2 years ago, had leukemia, missed the season, came back, and actually had a very good year for the Orioles last year, and is playing well for them again this year. So, best well wishes to John Mechie. Hope he gets well soon and overcomes his diagnosis. But that's a shame for him to not be able to play his rookie year. On a more lighter note, well, sort of, the MLB Madden Ratings. I realize I said that Madden Ratings aren't exactly the best. The Madden Ratings came out this week. And as usual, they were slightly controversial. What else is new? I actually have a theory about these Madden ratings. People wonder, how come every year they're always just so terrible? Like, how do they manage to pull this off? I think they know their game is crap, and not a lot of people buy it. It's the same damn thing every time. People are bored of it. I might still buy it. That being said, I did not buy it last year. I will say that. I did not buy it last year because I was looking at like the preview for it and was like, it's literally Madden 21 except crappier. So I didn't feel like buying it, though I probably will buy it this year, considering John Madden is on the cover. Of course, he recently passed away. John Madden, of course, the guy who basically created the video game. I believe they purposely screw up the ratings so that gets people talking about the game, so the game gets popularity, and more people hear about it, and makes more people want to buy it because now they're curious why everyone's talking about all these ratings. That's just my theory. So, ratings came out the other day. As usual, I'm warning you, there are some ratings that don't make a lot of sense. So these were I'm going to go over the top 10 for a bunch of different positions, and I'm going to talk about ones I agree with and talk about ones I disagree with. More so the ones I disagree with, it's because there's more I disagree with than I agree with because these Madden rankings, as usual, are just not good. Well, wide receivers, these are the top 10. You had Devontae Adams, who was in the 99 club. Cooper Kupp at 98. Tyler Kill at 97. DeAndre Hopkins at 96. Stephon Diggs at 95. Justin Jefferson, 93. Mike Evans, 92. That's the first 7. And then 8 through 10, you had Keenan Allen at 91. Terry McLaurin at 91. And Amari Cooper at 90. Okay. The first, I don't have too much of a problem with. Keenan Allen is a guy who's very, very underrated. I'm glad they put him at 91. Terry McLaurin's a guy who just hasn't had a good quarterback, and he still has put up some big numbers. I'm glad he got his contract. I personally think Amari Cooper is a little bit high at 90. He's really good. That was a big move for the Cleveland Browns to pick him up in this offseason to be their top receiver. That being said, how is Jamar Chase 87 overall? You're telling me that Amari Cooper is better than these guys. He's better than Chris Godwin. I don't think he's better than Chris Godwin. They had Chris Godwin at an 89. DK Metcalf, maybe, is an 89. Deebo Samuel's an 89. I think Deebo Samuel should be higher. You see what he did last year? He's a diva. He's annoying, but he's a great player. You have Adam Thielen at an 88. Okay, DJ Moore 88. And then AJ Brown, even AJ Brown could be higher, and he's an 87. But Jamar Chase only has an 87. That's not good. He should be over a 90. I think Jamar Chase is better than Amari Cooper. I think A.J. Brown is better than Amari Cooper. I think Deebo Samuel is better than Amari Cooper. I even think Chris Godwin is better than Amari Cooper. And look at some of the guys they have better than Jamar Chase or Amari Cooper. Michael Thomas didn't even play last year. Played only 5 games the year before. This is his last full season. He had maybe the best year receiver ever had until Cooper Kupp last year. But he's missed almost all the last 2 years. He's getting in fights with teammates. His team doesn't even like him. They tried to trade him in the past, and he's a 90. How? How? Tyler Lockett's a great player, but I don't think he's better than Jamar Chase. DK Metcalf is a great player, but I don't think he's better than Jamar Chase. Adam Thielen's also a great player. I don't think he's better than Jamar Chase. Ditto for DJ Moore. I don't get it. I don't understand at all. That, to me, makes no sense at all. Jamar Chase, I thought, was way too high. Let's go to the edge rushers. Here are the top 10 edge rushers. Aaron Donald, I guess they put him in. They have him as a right end. He's a rated defensive tackle. He can play defensive end as well. No one's stopping him while coming off the edge. No one's stopping him on the inside. Hell, I'm sure he can play linebacker if he wanted to. He's 99. No surprise there. Myles Garrett is in the 99 club. And you have T.J. Watt at 96. And then you have this kind of combines some of the linebackers as well. But we had T.J. Watt at 96. You had Nick Bosa at 94. Cameron Hayward at a 93. You had Von Miller at 92. We had Cameron Jordan at 91. Joey Bosa got a 91. And Chandler Jones got a 90. DeMarcus Lawrence got a 90. And Rashawn Gary got an 89. I personally think Rashawn Gary's a little bit too high at an 89. He's a good player, and he's going to get a lot of playing time here with Smith, with Zadarius Smith not there anymore. I think he could be a bit of a under-the-radar breakout guy. But for what he's done so far, I don't think he's an 89. DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't understand. This guy has not been good in 3 years. He can't stay on the field. He's always getting injured. He's always getting suspended. He hasn't had more than 5 sacks in 3 years. He's not that good. How's he at 90? Cameron Jordan's fine. He's a really good player. He's starting to get a tiny bit older, but he's a really good player. I don't really have a problem with T.J. Watt being a 96 and Miles Garrett being a 99. The numbers themselves that were fine, but I think T.J. Watt is better than Miles Garrett. I don't know. Vaughn also at 92. He's still a great player, but I think 92 was a touch high for him. Let's go to the running backs. These are your top 10 running backs. We have Derrick Henry at 97, Christian McCaffrey at 96, Nick Chubb at 96, Jonathan Taylor at 95, Dalvin Cook at 94, Joe Mixon at 93, Alvin Kamara at 90, Aaron Jones at 89, Austin Eckler at 88, and Ezekiel Elliott at 88. Okay, I'm going to say this once. Ezekiel Elliott is overrated. His first 3 years in the league, he was a beast. He was a top 3 running back in the NFL. Since then, he's been a good running back. I think he's a good running back, but he is not elite. He can give you maybe 1,000 yards a year, but he's not the monster he once was. He's a very good, not great running back. His pass catching skills are not nearly what they once were. He's not this top running back anymore. He just isn't. Ever since he got suspended, to be honest, he really hasn't been the same. I thought Austin Eckler came in all higher. Everyone thought he was underrated. I thought Alvin Kamara personally was a little bit low at 90. I think he's better than Joe Mixon. I would have probably swapped him and Mixon. Would have put Kamara at 93 and Mixon at 90. Not that I think Mixon is overly high. He had a great year last year. He's a really good player, but I think Kamara is a little bit better than Joe Mixon personally. And McCaffrey, I know when he's healthy, he's amazing. But the guy is very played the last 2 years. Is he really better than Jonathan Taylor? I mean, come on. Yeah, when he's healthy, but he's never healthy. I would have put him a little bit lower personally. So those are your running backs. I love how I have literally nothing to say about any of these ratings. Let's go back to the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to your cornerbacks. For corners, you have Jalen Ramsey, who's on 98. Then you have Jaire Alexander on 94. You have Tre'Davious White on 93. So those are your top 3. Followed by Darius Slay, number 4 at 92. Denzel Ward on 92. That's 4 and 5. Number 6, Marshall Lattimore at 91. And then 7 through 10, you have Stephon Gilmore at 91. Marvin Humphrey at 90, A.J. Terrell at 89, and Kendall Fuller at 89. I thought Stephon Gilmore was really high. He's older now. He has not been the same since winning Defensive Player of the Year. He's still been very good. I don't think he's quite the same. I wouldn't have had him that high. Also, Kendall Fuller is a really good player. I really like him out in Washington, but 89 I think was a little bit high. Ramsey, I'm not a fan of him. He's definitely a great player. Having him at 98, he's a lockdown corner, but he also does get beat a lot. So is he number 1? I don't know. I'm going to reread the top 10. Jalen Ramsey at 98, Jaire Alexander at 94, Tre'Davious White at 93, Darius Slay at 92, Denzel Ward at 92, Marshall Lattimore at 91, Stephon Gilmore at 91, J.C. Jackson's is a 90. I missed him. Marvin Humphrey's at 90, AJ Terrell's at 89. I would have probably had Stephon Gilmore a little bit lower, personally. So those are your corners. So now let's move over to what everyone's been waiting for, the quarterbacks. Here are your quarterback ratings. They have Tom Brady ranked first at 97. Then Aaron Rodgers at 96. Patrick Mahomes at 95. Josh Allen at 92. Joe Burrow at 90. Dak Prescott at 89, Justin Herbert at 88, Lamar Jackson at 87, Russell Wilson at 87, Matthew Stafford at 85. I have a lot of issues with this list. Tom Brady is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. He is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Last year had over 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, but I don't believe he is the best quarterback in the NFL. I would have had him probably about 90. I think 97 is quite high. I think Rodgers, Mahomes, and Josh Allen are all better than him. Okay, and Dak Prescott is overrated. He is not an 89. I know his numbers look pretty. He has over 4,500 yards. I think he had like 33 touchdowns against 7 picks last year. But you look at his numbers for his career against teams under 500. Like every team in his division usually. He's great. But when he plays good teams, his numbers are terrible. He's a fraud. He is not an 89. He should be an 82. And him over Justin Herbert, stop. Stop it. Nope. No. That's a no. Herbert only an 88, that's too low. He should be top 5. I would have had him probably about 90, between 90 and 92. So, quarterback rands out were not too good. I'm fine with Lamar in 87. I do like Lamar. I do think Russ Wilson's still a great quarterback. I'm fine with him being an 87. But Matthew Stafford, I think, should be higher. He's an 85. This is the year he had last year. He was always great in Detroit. He was just in Detroit. And then you see what he did last year with the Rams, 85. I think it was a smidge low. I would probably have him at about an 89. So those are the major position ratings. Let's quickly go over the NFL team ratings. Is the NFL team rating going to go from first all the way through 32. Bucks are at 92, Bills 89, Rams 88, Packers 88, Ravens 87, Chargers 87, Cowboys 86, Chiefs 86, 49ers 86, Eagles 85, Bengals 85, Cardinals 84, Browns 84, Broncos 84, Raiders 83, Dolphins 83, Titans 82, Saints 82, Colts 82, Commanders 81, Patriots 81, Vikings 80, Steelers 80, Panthers 79, Jets 79, Bears 78, Lions 78, Falcons 77, Jaguars 77, Seahawks 76, Giants 75, Texans 74. These are my issues with this list. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not the best team in the NFL. I think they're a really good NFL team, and with Brady, they'll definitely win the South, and they're probably a top 7 team in the NFL, but they're not number 1. They are not. They are not. Not true. Also, the Cowboys are not an 86. I don't think they're a better team than the Eagles this year. I don't agree with that. I thought that should have been a little bit lower. I don't mean to be a Cowboys hater, but I think that was a little bit much. And then another thing that I had, I think the Colts are a better team than the Titans, and they had the same rating. Both were 82. I think the Colts are a really good team. Matt Ryan, I think with better pieces around him, can still be a very good quarterback, so I would have had the Colts a little bit higher. I think otherwise, the only other thing, I think the Bears should be a little bit lower. Lions 78, I think the Lions could actually be not horrendous this year, so I didn't have a problem with them being a 78. But the Bears should be worse than a 78. There's nothing on their roster that I like. They should probably be like a 76 or a 75. It should be a little bit lower. So team I didn't have too many problems with, but I did have a couple of concerns there. So Madden 23, it's coming out whenever it's coming out. I guess go buy it. If you want to go buy it, you can. I'm not sure if I recommend it. That being said, I'm probably going to buy it too. So buy it if you want. If you don't want to buy it, you are very, very smart. And some news, the 49ers have granted Jimmy Garoppolo permission to seek a trade. Who knows, maybe now if the Baker Mayfield got traded, he's the last remaining domino. The Atlanta Falcons could use an upgrade. The Seahawks could use an upgrade. I mean, Deshaun Watson gets suspended for at least a year. The Browns could use somebody else besides Jacoby Brissett. They actually just signed Josh Rosen, who obviously has been on like a zillion different teams for death. I've heard the Browns are probably not going to trade for him now. But we'll see if now that Jimmy G is now back from his long shoulder surgery recovery, he's now able to throw in training camp. Maybe that trade will now get done soon. But he was given permission to seek a trade, so it appears the 49ers are turning a new leaf over to Trey Lance. Just quickly, some golf news. There is, just so you know, there's been some rumors that Cameron Smith, who just won the Open, may be headed to the LIV Tour. he kind of dodged questions about it at the tournament, but I'm hearing he may be going to a live tour. There are some rumors. And Henrik Stenson has agreed to go to a live tour. At one point, he was one of the better players in the world. He's much older now, but he has signed to a live tour, and he was supposed to be the team captain for the European team at the Ryder Cup in 2023, and he was forced to give that up. He says he doesn't agree with that decision, but it's something that he has to do in order to go live tour, which is something he wanted to do, so he accepted it. And before we wrap up, let's talk about some wrestling. WWE Raw recap from Monday. Bianca Belair defeated Carmella, and she will face Becky Lynch at SummerSlam 1-on-1 for the Raw Women's Championship. We had Seth Rollins. He attacked Riddle on the KO show. That happened, and Damian Priest defeated Rey Mysterio. And then, him and Finn Balor attacked Mysterio and Dominic after the match. And then Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio, I think they challenged him to a match next week on Raw, which Rey Mysterio will be celebrating his 20th anniversary at Madison Square Garden at Monday Night Raw next week. Crazy. 20 years of Rey Mysterio. And then Seth Rollins defeated Ezekiel in a match. Angelo Dawkins fought Omos, and then Angelo Dawkins won by disqualification. MVP tripped Dawkins outside the ring, and he got disqualified, and then Adam Pearce restarted the match as a six-man tag. Not six-man tag, a regular tag team match. The Street Profits against Omos and MVP, and the Street Profits won, but afterwards the Usos came out and attacked the Street Profits, and then Omos chokeslammed both of the Street Profits. AJ Styles fought Theory. AJ Styles won by count out after Dolph Ziggler attacked Theory behind the referee's back as Dolph Ziggler continues to go after Theory. Then we had a 6-woman tag team match. Asuka, Dana Brooke, and Alexa Bliss defeated Nikki Ash, Tamina, and Doudrop. Asuka knocked Nikki Ash in a submission move. And then on Miz TV, Logan Paul refused to team with The Miz. He's still mad that Miz turned on him at WrestleMania. And he made the tiny ball joke about The Miz. The Miz was trying to dodge him, and then the Miz ended up accepting Logan Paul's challenge, and they will fight at SummerSlam. And then they started attacking each other. Ciampa tried to come and save The Miz, but Logan Paul was able to escape. So that's what we had on Raw. SummerSlam continuing to shape up. WWE SmackDown. By the way, before I say this, we had some breaking news. Vince McMahon has officially retired from WWE at 77 years old. Of course, he's been accused of the allegations, which is why he stepped down as chairman. So his daughter, of course, Stephanie McMahon, was named co-CEO along with Nick Khan, who is the current CEO, and Stephanie McMahon will be co-CEO with him for the time being. And there were some wrestlers who thanked him on social media, but I heard a lot of wrestlers celebrate him, as he just couldn't do it anymore, and of course the allegations as well. Stephanie McMahon opened SmackDown for fiery intro. Just kind of like thanking her dad and the entire crowd, saying thank you, Vince. So at the main event, it was a 6-man tag team match, the Street Profits and Madcap Moss against the Usos, who of course are the tag team champs, and Theory. On the match, the Usos started beating up their own partner Theory because they don't want Theory to cash in his Money in the Bank contract against their cousin, the tribal chief Roman Reigns, if Roman Reigns beats Brock Lesnar in the main event of the SummerSlam. So they beat him up per instructions before the match from Paul Heyman. And then Theory took his briefcase and attacked Madcap Moss and started beating him up for the second straight week. And then Brock Lesnar came out and beat the crap out of Theory. There was a rumor that Brock Lesnar actually left SmackDown like before it went on air when he heard the news about Vince McMahon, but he ended up. I guess he came back and took care of business. So kudos to Brock Lesnar just putting his feelings aside for the people and did what he did need to do. We had Ludwig Kyle defeat Shinsuke Nakamura after Gunther punched Nakamura in the face when the referee wasn't looking. Gunther still chopped Ludwig Kaiser's chest after the match, kind of saying like I know you won, but if I hadn't, punched Nakamura in the face behind the referee's back, you would have lost. Happy Corbin attacked Pat McAfee, and then Pat McAfee pulled the promo. Of course, they'll be fighting at SummerSlam. And the Viking Raiders beat Jinder Mahal and Shanky via countout. And of course, the Viking Raiders and the New Day, who were at ringside for the match, are going to fight in a tag team match next week. And then Sheamus, who's been dodging Drew McIntyre for weeks, he's going to face Drew McIntyre in a Donnybrook match, which is basically no holds barred, but with Irish weapons. Of course, Sheamus is very, he makes it known that he's very Irish. And the winner of that will face whoever the Universal Champions, whether it's Roman Reigns, whether it's Brock Lesnar, whether it's Theory, at Clash of the Castle. We had Raquel Rodriguez defeat Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville once again stormed Adam Pearson's office, criticizing him. Of course, she's still mad that he fired her. And then she was like, Sonya, I've had enough. You're in a match against Raquel Rodriguez, had fun, and Raquel beat her up. And then Lacey Evans again was supposed to fight Aaliyah, and then again she came out. She berated the crowd for not giving her a good ovation. Told to go to hell, and then hit Aaliyah with the woman's right. And apparently they are going to have there's a match set up for next week, so we'll also see if it actually happens. And supposedly Max Dupree's sister, Maxine Dupree, did a short promo. Apparently there's going to be some sort of showcase with the Maximum Male models next week. So we will have to wait until next week for Massey and Mansois to titillate us with our guilty pleasures or whatever the heck the line is. That might be one of the stupidest things I've ever seen WWE do. I do not like that whole Maximum Male models thing. Alright, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you everyone who tuned in. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.